Hello, everyone. I'm Blayne Gilmer. Welcome here to Southeastern 14. This is your SEC Morning Report, where we cover the latest, the greatest, everything going on in SEC football each and every morning, Monday through Thursday. And then on Fridays, I bring you Jake's Takes on Southeastern 14 with Jake Crane of Crane & Company on the Daily Wire. He will be here with us each and every Friday through football season. We also have great stuff with Brian Edwards, who does Vegas picks against the spread, gives you his insight on the best bets of the week. And then, of course, Chris Lee and Blake Love will have their daily show. So make sure you are tuned in right here to Southeastern 14 for all the SEC coverage you could want each and every single day. And hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We would greatly appreciate that. On Mondays, we do what we learned about each team. On Tuesdays, it is the injury report. We go through, we listen to what some of the coaches around the league said on Monday, and then we kind of put it all together and let you know what's going on here on Tuesday with the injury report. So let's start off with Alabama. They're coming off that lackluster performance against South Florida. They were without a couple of linemen on each side of the ball. Tyler Booker should be back. He's been having some back spasms. He should be back. He told the media he's feeling a lot better after sitting out that game. And then Jaheim Otis on the other side of the defensive line, he should be back as well. I think he was dealing with a little bit of an ankle injury right there. And then Kendrick Law was out due to sickness, so he should be back at receiver for Alabama. They're going to be full strength going against a Ole Miss team that they're going to need to be full strength against, because especially Kendrick Law, they're going to need every offensive weapon they can get. Tyler Booker has been one of their more consistent offensive linemen. He really helps Caden Proctor over there, is what Nick Saban said, helps, just give him a little bit of the reinsurance. Having a guy who's experienced behind him can help pass things off and things like that. So that is big for Alabama's protection of Jalen Milroe. We'll speak on that here just briefly. Jalen Milroe gets to be the Alabama signal caller once again, as Nick Saban named him the starter. I think that's huge for Alabama, because I didn't think he should have been removed from it in the first place. It really is this offense, I think, struggled more than anything. And also Tommy Rees, I think, struggled against Texas to put together a game plan and call a game that was conducive to the skill set of one Jalen Milroe. If they can do that now with Booker back and then getting Kendrick Law back on the offensive side, I think they'll be much better off when it comes to setting up a game plan against Ole Miss. I think Jalen Milroe is the best option that they possibly have, and it didn't take long for Nick Saban to see otherwise after benching him for that South Florida game. So that is Alabama's injury report right there. Arkansas has a good many guys that are kind of on the shelf, for an extended period of time. You got guys like Samuel Mbake out for the season. Rocket Sanders is, of course, the biggest question here as they head into this LSU game. Can they get him back? They kind of avoided a disaster with Patrick Kudus and Andrew Chambly, both having exited the game against BYU, both of your offensive tackles, but Sam Pittman says they should be fine and available. He said Rocket Sanders was moving around a little bit at Monday's practice, so he was out there with them. That's the biggest thing for Arkansas. Can they get their star running back back in the lineup, who he just makes that offensive line better, as all good running backs do. And we've seen that it's maybe not up to the standard that Sam Pittman has become accustomed to with some of those guys that he's had up front. Not a great game by Bo Limmer and Brady Latham either, guys that have been around and that Arkansas is counting on tremendously. So going to need to see some improvement. Of course, if they're banged up at all, that's just tough against an LSU front that is just salty and has guys that are freak athletes like, Harold Perkins, Deshaun Womack, Mason Smith. The list goes on and on and on. So going to hope that Kudus and Chambly are both healthy for this game and don't have any effects from exiting on that last drive for Arkansas. And then Rocket Sanders, if he could get back, that would be absolutely huge for the Razorbacks. Then you have the Auburn Tigers. Auburn is going to be without Keontae Scott, who suffered an injury. He didn't get a good report. He's going to have surgery. And you know that's tough when you have Keontae Scott going out with surgery on his ankle, and then Austin Keys is out again for a little while because he had that thumb surgery after the UMass game. That's two key defenders, one at corner, one at inside linebacker for you on that Auburn defense. And, you know, it's not to the point, I think, yet where Auburn is able to just handle a ton of issues depth-wise. They do have guys like Kayan Lee at corner who's stepped up as a freshman, and he's been able to make some plays. When you have Maya Pritchett out now, he may have to do so as well with Keontae Scott out a little bit. So that is bothersome, is one way. Troublesome, concerning is how Hugh Freeze categorized his injury list as he went through it on Monday, that he was given the list of guys that are dealing with some injuries. He's not the only Tiger that's injured. Offensive lineman Cam Stutz and Isavion Miller, and also wide receiver Javarius Johnson and tight end Luke Deal all went down with injuries against Samford. Jalen McLeod, their jack linebacker, was limited to 20 snaps in that game. So who knows the status of those guys. They have to kind of see where they're at. That could be questionable going into Saturday. They're going to try to get them all back. I think it's a deal where they're just going to have to see, you know, a little bit of pain tolerance and how much rehab they can do there. But Auburn is pretty banged up going into this Texas A&M game. And then when you talk about Donovan Kaufman, he has not played due to concussion protocol, and then Nehemiah Pritchett has not played the entire year. I do think they'll get Nehemiah Pritchett back for this Texas A&M game, so that would be big, and it would be huge to be able to get a guy who is considered to be an NFL talent there at corner, especially with Keontae Scott out. Getting Donovan Kaufman back at safety would be big. So they do get a little bit of reinforcements, I think, in the secondary, and then we'll see how that offensive line and receiving core are affected by those injuries, that maybe some minor injuries there to Stutz and Miller and Johnson. So just keep an eye out on that for Auburn, and we'll catch you back up later in the week, probably Thursday or Friday, with an update on those injuries on that front for the Auburn Tigers. Florida is banged up when it comes to its receiving weapons. Eugene Wilson, he had it's not broken, but a collarbone injury, and we don't know if he's going to play against Charlotte. I would probably lean towards him not playing against Charlotte and kind of resting up and saving things for when they get Kentucky on the road. I think they'll be able to handle Charlotte without Eugene Wilson. So a target that Graham Mertz has come to enjoy throwing the ball to, and he's out banged up with I guess they're categorizing it as a collarbone injury, but it's not broken. So they said it's more of a pain tolerance type thing. So I'm not sure if it's a deep bone bruise or maybe it's some kind of like displacement there. I don't know exactly what it is, but they said it's a collarbone injury that is not broken. So Eugene Wilson's the big one there. Marcus Burke continues to be held out. He's been held out of the last two contests with what's categorized as an upper body injury. So they're going NHL style on us and not telling us exactly what it is. Upper body injury for Marcus Burke. That's another experienced wide receiver there for Florida that is not in the lineup. And then Keon Zippier is still rehabbing a knee injury, and it's unclear when he'll get back into the lineup at that tight end position for the Florida Gators. The Georgia Bulldogs are absolutely riddled with injuries right now. That may be part of their struggles offensively. Amarius Mims went out of the game against South Carolina in the first half with a ankle injury, a high ankle sprain. He's had the tightrope surgery, or will have the tightrope surgery, and will be out probably 4 to 6 weeks. So that is an All-American caliber right tackle that is out for Georgia, Kendall Milton, is dealing with an MCL injury. We don't know how long he'll be out. It's really more going to be, hey, how soon can you get it rehab to the point where you can tolerate playing on it type deal. Ladd McConkey continues to have back problems. I wouldn't expect to see him before the Auburn game next week. You won't see him for UAB this week. Javon Bullard, ankle sprain as well. I was in Sanford Stadium, saw him warming up. He just looked to be moving gingerly on it. Saw him have a conversation with Will Muschamp during warmups, and you can tell that it just wasn't where it needed to be. So also, Tyron Ingram Dawkins has been out for a while. They're going to try to get him back. Austin Blasky, a backup offensive tackle. He's a guy that can play multiple positions for the Georgia Bulldogs, and having him being able to maybe fit into that right tackle situation possibly for Amarius Mims, or maybe if they want to stay with Xavier Truss over there, him being able to play guard, he can play center, he can play all 5 positions on the offensive line. So that is a big plus that Georgia seems like they're going to be able to get him back. And then, of course, Georgia is without 2 of its tight ends in freshman Lawson Lucky, who had that tie rope surgery back in fall camp on his ankle, and then Pierce Spurlin is out as well. Roderick Robinson, a freshman running back. Georgia's very thin at running back. He is dealing with an ankle sprain and is questionable for Saturday. So the Georgia Bulldogs are thin. They have a lot of injuries to work through. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there with the Dogs going forward. They have a night game, 7:30 against UAB, kind of a final tune-up before they hit the meat of this SEC schedule. So we'll see how the health of the Dogs is after this upcoming game on Saturday. The Kentucky Wildcats, they survived a scare there with Devin Leary. He kind of had the breath knocked out of him a little bit. Not something that you definitely want to hear out of your star quarterback who's starting to play really, really good. They didn't know exactly what it was at the time, but Mark Stoops said, hey, he could have come back into the game. So that is good news for Kentucky. Tight end Josh Caddis was spotted leaving the game early Saturday. We don't know exactly what's going on with him, but we're not sure if he'll be able to return for Vandy. They're going to kind of monitor him throughout the week. So he's a guy that is, he's starting to come into his own for Kentucky. 2 catches and a touchdown in the past game. So that's a guy that is starting to round into form. It'd be a shame to see him be out to injury. And then, of course, Kenneth Horsey hurt his knee in that Ball State game earlier this year. And I think you won't see him before that Florida game at best. So I think he'll be out this week against Vanderbilt, and then he's just trying to rehab that knee and get it to a position where he can play against Florida. Did avoid season-ending injury is what Mark Stoops told us earlier on, so we'll see, but has a knee sprain that he's dealing with and trying to rehab the left guard for Kentucky to get them back at full strength at offensive line. I think they're still probably a week away at least from having him there. LSU, they were dealing with some injuries. Guys that were listed on the injury report: Omar Spates at linebacker, Ovia Hofu, an outside linebacker edge player, and Mason Taylor are all probable to play against Arkansas after not being able to play the previous game or being banged up in the previous game. But Greg Brooks will not play, a former Arkansas Razorback that transferred before last season to LSU. He's dealing with a medical emergency, a family deal, and is not going to be able to play in this game. He started 13 of 14 games for LSU last year, and really kind of is a glue guy in the back of that defense for LSU. So that is a major blow. But the good news for LSU is that Arkansas's receivers haven't been able to separate from anybody. BYU, Kent State, Western Carolina, lesser competition. So they shouldn't have too hard of a time covering Arkansas's receivers, as it has been rough go for the receiving corps over there in Fayetteville. And that game will be played at Baton Rouge. So going to be without Greg Brooks, but they should get Omar Spates back. They should get Ovia Hofu back, and they should get Mason Taylor, the tight end, back, all playing against the Razorbacks on Saturday. Mississippi State, relatively healthy, so we won't do a whole lot with them. I'm sure they have some bumps and bruises, but nobody really listed as a major deal on their injury report. After that LSU game, maybe their pride hurt a little bit after getting waxed over there. Zach Arnett's ego, maybe he's got to change some things in how he approaches games. Can't just try to run the ball into that front. Going to have to throw the ball a little bit. Missouri, relatively healthy as well, except quarterback Brady Cook is dealing with a knee sprain. It's going to be kind of a pain tolerance type deal, and that does hurt Missouri a little bit in the fact that part of Brady Cook's game is being able to utilize his legs and extend plays, make things happen kind of off schedule. So if he's hampered in any way, that could slow things down a little bit. But Brady Cook is tough as a pine knot and is going to try to play through that knee sprain. So just kind of monitor that as they play Memphis this weekend. St. Louis, it's going to be an interesting matchup there, a battle for Missouri as they try to remain undefeated on the year. Ole Miss is getting some good news, I think, on Trey Harris and Caden Priestcorn, a tight end that transferred in for them that they're really looking forward to. And then, of course, Trey Harris has had a great start when he's been healthy, transferred in from Louisiana Tech, and he has looked fantastic at receiver. Him and Jackson Dart building a rapport early on, and both of them are out there practicing, moving around. Now, Lane Kiffin has said all kinds of things this week heading into the Alabama game. He's questioned whether Kevin Steele is still the defensive coordinator or calling the defensive plays for Alabama. So that, even to the extent where Nick Saban had to address it in his press conference Monday. So who knows if this is a little gamesmanship. Lane Kiffin saying, hey, that they're looking good. They're getting better because Priestcorn has been out. Trey Harris has been out, but he said they're both out there moving around, getting some work in. But he did say they looked a little better in health. So that would be huge to get those weapons back. And then Zachary Franklin is a guy who he had, when he was at UTSA, 1,100 yards receiving last year. The year before that, 938 yards receiving, over 70 catches, receptions in both of those years, 73 the previous year or 2 years ago, and 86 last year. So that would be a guy that you would add an experienced weapon. He's been out for Ole Miss, hasn't suited up yet. So we'll see if they get him back. I think he's trending towards getting healthier. Who knows if they can get him back for this game, but that would be huge to add even another weapon there for Jackson Dart to have going into this Alabama game. That Alabama, when we did our preview, is a 6.5-point favorite, and Chris and I both are kind of confused by that. I know it's in Tuscaloosa, but I just don't know that this is the Alabama team of old. You've got Pete Golding over there that's the defensive coordinator for Ole Miss, knows that personnel pretty intimately, what they struggle with, what their strengths are. So I think that's an advantage for Ole Miss going into this one. So we'll see. And if they can get those three offensive weapons back, man, what a time that would be for Ole Miss heading into a Bryant-Denny Stadium with an Alabama team that looks a little bit vulnerable here. The South Carolina Gamecocks, they have been banged up. They continue to be banged up. They've lost some guys for the season. Marquis Anderson, a guard that has played for them a good bit, he is out for the season with knee injury. Juice Wells, he scored a touchdown against Georgia early and couldn't come back in because he's got a broken bone in his foot. He's been trying to play through stuff in his foot going into where he already had to have a screw replaced. Crazy kind of stuff that it feels like he should have been shut down a long time ago, but he's tried to play through it, and now he's going to be out for an extended amount of time. They could get Amraheem Brown back. He missed the previous game, but I think he's trending towards being back for South Carolina kind of day-to-day there. So, and Jatius Greer should be back as well. He's listed as day-to-day. on the defensive side of the ball and could be back. South Carolina gets to host Mississippi State at night. So, Williams-Brice Stadium is going to be jumping over there. An offensive lineman out for the year. They've already lost a couple offensive linemen before this, leading into this game. So they are thin on the offensive line. And now they are one weapon short out there on the perimeter, with Juice Wells being out for an extended time with that broken foot. So hopefully he returns quickly, because he is a fun player to watch here in the SEC. Texas A&M head coach Jimbo Fisher provided injury updates on the receiving corps. Evan Stewart is banged up a little bit. He did not play Saturday, but he is going to be back for the Auburn game. Noah Thomas left with a injury during that game, but both should be fine, is what Jimbo Fisher reported, and that is huge for Connor Wigman, who gets two weapons, one 6'4", 6'5", 200 pounds, and Noah Thomas that he connected with early and often in the opening game against New Mexico, and then Evan Stewart, who is the team's #1 receiver. So having them back and rested up is going to be big. Bryce Foster, the center for Texas A&M, didn't play. He dressed out for the game against ULM, but he did not play. And he should be back and ready to go for this game against Auburn. Jimbo Fisher says Bryce was available, but I didn't think he was quite healthy, and he didn't feel quite healthy enough. So they got their backup center some experience, Mark Naboo Jr., so that's always good to get another guy some snaps, especially when it's a game like that you can win and handle without having to have your starting center take on more of a chance of injury if he doesn't need to. Chase Pasantis got injured, nicked up a little bit towards the end of the first half, but they went and played Demetrius Crownover in his place. They were pretty happy with how Crownover played there. So I think that was a situation where they could have played Pasantis. He might have come back. It wasn't too bad, but they went ahead and played Crownover. So we'll see how that plays out going forward between those two. And then Tyreek Chappelle, who is a key guy in the secondary for them, experienced guy at corner. He did not play, but should be back. So the Aggies should be more at full strength than Auburn in that matchup this Saturday. And you can see all of our previews and picks on those games that are now on the channel. You can see every single SEC game picked, previewed, in-depth analysis, all here, all throughout the season. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications. We appreciate you guys tuning in for this SEC morning report. Again, you can go back and look at yesterday, what we learned about each team. Today, we're covering the injury reports, and then we'll have the latest news and notes for you on teams around the SEC, and also some of the major topics tomorrow and Thursday. Jake's takes on Friday. So make sure to like, subscribe, turn on notifications. We'll have a live show later today as you're watching this on Tuesday, September 19th. Chris Lee, Blake Lovell, Gavin Schoenwald, all those guys over there do a great job with that. So like I said, like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Thank you for tuning in. Also, too, did want to mention our partner CHOMPS here. Make sure you're getting you a healthy protein snack, guys. If you want the perfect snack during the game, CHOMPS is a family-owned and operated snack brand that has products made with the highest quality proteins, 9 flavors that you can choose from. There's something for everyone. If you are trying CHOMPS for the first time, you can get a trial pack. You got a 15% off code in the description below. Use the link, and we appreciate guys you supporting CHOMPS as they're supporting us here on the channel. So thank you so much to CHOMPS, and guys, we will catch you next time to talk more SEC football right here on Southeastern 14.